Okay, so we've got a quick project that we're going to be doing today. I've got some bits of surplus solar panels and lamps, batteries, etc. that I'm going to be using to power up some lighting for one of my smaller sheds. This is just surplus stuff that I've had left over from various other projects and sort of collected over the years. So I thought I might as well use this to give me a bit of light. It's in a very small shed, not going to be used very often, but it's certainly easier in a way than having to sort of link up electric from the main power source to the shed. So let me show you inside the shed and I'll show you what we're going to be doing. Okay, so inside the shed, it's a little bit dark, but we'll just about see it. Let's go out here. So this is the small little shed we're going to be using to get some lighting in today. It's fairly light now, obviously it's daylight outside. But this is just like storage space that we use for bits of camping gear. I've got some more stuff to bring in yet, but I thought I'd wait until I've got the lighting sorted. Bit of homebrew winemaking gear and various hoovers and bits and bobs, bits of paint. So what I wanted to do is to get a few lights put up just onto the roof somewhere, get myself a light switch somewhere around about here, possibly put the battery pack and the solar charger up here, move these paints out of the way, and that's the general idea. The solar panel itself is going to be situated just somewhere on this roof. Over the next sort of hour or two, I'll be hitting direct sunlight, so that's absolutely fine for what I'm going to be using. So it's a very small space, doesn't need much light. We don't spend much time here at all. It is just going to be for a few minutes at a time in the evenings where we just need a bit of light. So that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, so the lights I'm going to be using are these LED lights. These are LED lights, 27 watts, rated at about 12 volts. These are initially for motor vehicles, kind of spotlight type things. They were bought a while ago for a previous project and just never really got used. So I've got two of these, identical ones. So I thought both of these, maybe one would suffice, but I thought I've got the two. They've not been used in all this time, so I might as well just get them both connected. And like I say, it's just stuff there, so not going to cost anything at all to get those used. This is a CMP12. It's possibly one of the cheapest charger control units you'll ever buy. You can get these for about £7 or £8 off eBay. They're not particularly brilliant. For basic use, they're okay, they do the job. It will control the charge coming in, it'll charge your battery, and it stops the battery charging when it's fully charged. What more can you want? If I was using a lot more current, a lot more power, bigger solar panels, then I'd want something a bit more substantial than this. For what it is, that's going to be absolutely fine for me today. The battery, this is a very old Lucas slab sealed lead acid battery. It's 12 volts, 7 amp hour. So again, for the amount of power that I'm going to be needing, this battery is going to be absolutely fine. It's a fair few years old. It probably doesn't work as well as it should do. I think there's been a few occasions where this has been drained down and completely flattened below sort of 10 volts, which you should never do with lead acid batteries. But I have tested it and it does hold a good enough charge for my lighting. So that's the battery for today's project. Solar panel wise, I've got a few different ones. I've got 100 watts, 150 watts, too much, it's not necessary for this. So the smaller panels I have, both 12 volts, this one is rated at 5 watts. So you reckon you're going to get about 0.3, 0.4 of an amp out of that one in direct sunlight? Potentially. It's a fair few years old though, so you probably won't get that much because they do deteriorate after a few years. So that very, very low. Probably for what I'm going to be using, it might be okay. This is a slightly newer one. This one I think is a 20 watts. This is a 24 watt panel. On a good day I should get about 1.3 sort of amps coming from this per hour. It all comes down to what you want from your system. If you want just the occasional use, you don't need anything more than a trickle charge, which is what this smaller one would do for me. So this one might actually be overkill for the amount of use I'm going to get. But I think I'm going to go with the installation. I'm going to go with this one. What can do a lot can do a little. I'll probably find that once we started using our shed, once we've got the lighting in and it's being used more, we may well end up by using the lights more than we sort of envisage at the moment. So I think I'm going to go with this panel, with this battery. These are the lights, and I've got myself a switch ready to go. Got the cables, the fuse. Let's give this a go. Right, so the first thing I need to do is to get the solar panel mounted onto the roof. Before I do that, I need to connect the wires. So what I'm going to do first of all, let's get the cables tinned and ready to connect straight into the panel itself. Should be warm enough by now. Just going to try and do this a simple way, balancing everything, which is the way I work. So let's get these tinned like so. And once these wires are tinned, it'll solder a lot easier onto the connectors inside. Alrighty, done. So the next thing I want to do is to get this panel mounted onto the roof. I think I'm going to go round about here for it. Pretty shortly this will get the direct sunlight, and that's the easiest way also for me to get the wiring straight into this little shed as well. The panel's now half mounted. I need to just drill a hole now and thread the cable through to come out into the room itself. Obviously, once I've drilled with the cable, I should be resealing the hole to make it completely watertight again. Okay, so the solar panel is now mounted on the roof, all sealed nicely. If we look inside, this is where the cable comes in from the solar panel. So what I need to do now is to decide where to put the battery and the charger unit. So let's get these things moved out of the way first of all. I don't really want any flammable liquids like white spirits to be too close to all the electrics. So we're going to keep those all separate, keep them out of the way. I think this is going to be the perfect place to put the battery nicely on this shelf. It'll be secured. The charge controller I can put just on the wall here above it. Wire down for the switch. Cable can go up here and onto the roof for the lighting. Let's give this a go. So first things first, charge controller. This I'm going to mount just here. Just using some small enough screws just to hold it into place, just so it doesn't also go through the wall altogether to the next part of the shed. Perfect. One very important thing, and if you see my other video you'll know this, you do not connect the solar to the charger unit until you connect to the battery. It's very important. If you put power into any charger controller without any battery being connected, the power inside there will be confused effectively, won't know what to do, and it can do some damage, and it has damaged in the past. So we always make sure this is powered up by battery before the solar. So first things first, now that's up, let's get the wire trimmed, cut, ready to go in, but not actually go in yet. Just so I know, so I can cut this cable off and move on to the battery, because the battery is the next thing I'm going to be connecting. Even though it's out of sight and it is just for shed, you still want it relatively safe and very safe and relatively neat and tidy as well. So on this particular panel, as you can see, cables coming in there. It requires a solar panel to be connected to the left, the battery in the middle, and the output to any auxiliaries like the lighting or any load that you want to the right. I'm not going to connect this just yet, but I should be cutting the wire there just so I can connect it once everything else is connected. Right, just getting the soldering iron heated up. going to solder the wiring to the battery and then tie that into the charge controller. So first of all, I'm going to be tinning the leads. There's already solder on the tabs to the battery, so that's all right. Some people don't like soldering straight onto batteries. It's sometimes best to actually just use spade connectors. But to be honest with you, when I do these sort of things, I like to have proper connectors where there's no chance of failure or of any bad contacts or anything like that. So I go straight on. So because I've done that previously, I kind of have no choice but to do that on this occasion as well, because everything's obviously got loads of solder attached to it. So just tinning this. Okay, so we're getting there. I've got this ready to go. The battery leads connected to the cable to go into there, and I put a fuse protector on. So this battery's ready to go. Fuse protection is in place. No fuse in yet. The fuse is currently out for safety, but that means I can now connect the cable to here and then connect the solar wire into the charger. Let's do that now. Okay, so we're getting there now. Here we go, charge controller mounted on the wall, wired and soldered onto the battery, minus the fuse protector. What we need to do is to get the fuse in to get this powered up, so I can then connect safely the solar panel to this charger. So this is my fuse. There we go. So it's lit up. Where's my screwdriver? There we go. So it's lit up nicely. That's a good sign. Shows the battery's okay. Shows that the fuse is okay and all the wiring so far is fine. So there we go, that's connected. We're now safe to connect these cables to the terminals here, which is the solar panel to this charger controller. We have to be careful when doing this because clearly these wires here are potentially alive because they're connected to the solar panel. So you want to be careful. It might have been a better idea to have done this side and then wire the actual panel afterwards, but I'm confident that I know what I'm doing and I'm being very careful. So there's no issues for me as far as I'm concerned, but for yourselves, you may decide to wire the panel in last. Okay, so there we are. So that's wired in. So we're happy that it's now saying charge, the LED's on for the charge. We've got the load, so there's enough power in this battery for this charge controller to be happy that we can have an output. Because as you probably know, if I've shown you another video, this will charge the battery. It'll stop the battery from overcharging, but also this will stop the battery from over discharging because it won't allow a load to be attached if this battery is too flat, and that's in order to protect this battery from running down too flat. I think it goes down to something like 10.5 volts before this will switch off. I think it's about 10.5 volts, and that's the safety voltage cut off really for lead acid batteries. So we're not completely charged, you can tell by this. We've got 3 LEDs, not completely charged. However, we've got a fairly good charge in there, enough to allow a load, like I said. So what I want to do now is to get myself some lighting set up and then connect the lighting circuit to this. Okay, so after doing a bit of analysis on this room and trying out this light with the camera turned off, it's actually a lot brighter than I thought, and I don't really think there's any need to have 2 of these. So I'm going to start off with just the one light. Keep the other light for a spare or for another project. This light, certainly, if I mount it here, will actually provide enough light inside this shed for what I need it for. So that's what I'm going to do. So with the light now mounted, I now need to go extend this cable to this corner here, where this cable then from the light will connect to the solar panel, to the charger controller, with a break in there for the cable to come down for the light switch a little bit lower down. So I've got the cable with me here, just stripping the ends. And using connector blocks like so, I'm going to join the wires together. Okay, so that's done. Just going to tidy this wiring up a bit now. In fact, that fits down there quite nicely. Okay, so this is the wire coming in from the light. Just going to cut that off there for the moment. I'm going to get the light switch wired in now. The light switch I think I'm going to put down, don't need it too far away. Where have I put it? It's here. I think I'm going to put it round about here, on this wall here. That should be sufficient for what I need. Okay, so we've got the switch now fastened here. I've not fastened it to the wall just yet, I shall do that shortly. I just wanted to get the clip to hold this in place so I can now feed the wire up here to my junction. Okay, so the black, the negative, I'm going to strip down. This negative can go straight to this panel. The live, or the positive, two coming up from the light switch are going to be just basically switch wires, like so. So what I'm going to do is to go live to the load. Well, I say live. So what I'm going to do is to, from the light switch, put one of the wires in the positive terminal. And then the other one, I join the two wires together, like so, and using a connector block, connect them together. And there we have it. Done. Let's have a closer look. So as you can see, the charge controller has already charged up that battery and is giving us the three LEDs, the three lights at the top there, as you can see, allowing us to have a load, and the charge indicator is working nicely. So we've got the battery going straight to the charge controller. We've got the light wired along, negative going straight into the charge controller, the positive going to the cable for the light switch down here, which I'm going to tidy up shortly, going back up there. So when I turn it on here, we have light, and that lights up really brightly, to be fair. I'm very happy with that. That's going to be absolute ample lighting for what I need. So there we go, and that's how we do it. Using a very cheap solar charger, an old battery that's about 5 years old and has been really badly abused and not looked after, an old switch that I still need to fasten on to the wall, which I'll do, and a solar panel that's on the roof. There we go. So I hope that explains to you really how simple it is to actually connect a very simple basic solar panel and charge controller and battery kind of circuit together. It's very, very simple. Just make sure you've got a fuse in place for the battery, because that's the biggest thing that's going to do some damage. Not necessarily harm you unless it explodes, but it's only 12 volts, but you can still set fire to something if you're not careful, if it's fully charged. Everything else is absolutely fine. It's working well. It's done the job as I predicted it would do. So all I have to do now is tidy away my tools and then wait for tonight to see how effective it is. But I know that with what I've done here and the light that I've used, I'm going to get more than enough light out of this. So that saved me the trouble. I'll put a list on the screen showing how much all these individual items would cost normally. In most cases, some cases, depending on the circumstances, it's cheaper to actually do this. Wire up a system like this rather than having to get mains electrics into a building. So this is always a viable option, certainly for me it is anyway, with having the parts already. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you another time.